Mogul Motivation, educating and empowering entrepreneurs 1 week at a time, presented by True Stories Media. And I am your host, Antoine Twiz Taylor. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Mogul Motivation. Welcome back. I'm happy that you are here. If this is your first time listening, this podcast is for the aspiring entrepreneur who is trying to get over that hump and make things happen. This podcast is for anybody who has a dream that wants to aspire higher and accomplish that dream. This week's Monday conversation, I'm sitting down with Kyshira. She is the owner of Life of a Bombshell Cosmetics. She is the creator of the Hustle Her Way Summit, as well as the owner of the KSM Group. Kyshira, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for asking. So, Kyshira, I just basically gave the audience a sneak peek of everything that you do, your entire resume. But if you can you tell us about your background and how did you get to the point where you are now as an entrepreneur?
Awesome. So my entrepreneurial journey actually began in undergrad. I was doing some freelance work around resume writing and interview prep and writing LinkedIn profiles. And at that time, I was actually doing it for free. It was just a resume builder, just something to do. And I was the person everyone would come to for advice on those things because, one, during my junior and senior years of college, I actually worked at our college career center, which was a blessing in itself. And I was studying business, and I had an opportunity to take part in a lot of career development programs, leadership development conferences, and things like that. So I had a wealth of knowledge that I didn't really understand the value of at that time, but I knew I could help other people by passing it on. So I graduated and moved on to start a career in human resources. So I was doing training and recruitment, all of that great stuff. So then naturally, I still became the person that people called when they needed help finding a new job. And a lot of people that I knew from school took jobs just to kind of say they had a job, to support themselves, kind of get out of their parents' house. But people weren't really happy and they weren't fulfilled. So they would call and say, hey, I'm ready to move on. I have an idea of what I want to do, but I don't know how to get there. I haven't been working very long. I don't have a lot of skills just yet. How do I brand myself to move along? And at that point in time, LinkedIn was still a hot tool. And it was a really good tool for job seekers because of the branding component, the networking component, all of that amazing stuff. So I was writing resumes and teaching people how to use LinkedIn. And at that time, I would actually include a 1-hour coaching call with my packages, but I would coach you on how to use LinkedIn the right way and how to really network and build relationships. So I decided to work with a peer and throw up a website that had a little rinky-dink services page on it. And I had a blog, which is when I started to write. And I had my resume on the site. And if you asked me then what the purpose of it was a personal branding tool to develop my own career, but then it was also like a little side hustle because I had the services thing there. And a lot of my clientele came from referrals, people passing me on. And though I didn't really know, what I was doing or how to charge my worth at that time, I was at least smart enough to get testimonials on my LinkedIn. So my LinkedIn has like 30 public recommendations on it for people who took the time to craft 2 and 3 paragraph statements about what I've done for them. So that aided in me maintaining that business. And that actually led to the business that I have today because an entrepreneur found me on LinkedIn by way of a connection. Her son went to my university, though I didn't know him. So she saw my profile, saw my recommendations, and she wanted to hire me to write her LinkedIn profile content. But the caveat was, I'm not looking for a job. I'm looking to brand this to get customers. So I continued to do research on, the right language and the right selling points. And I was able to do her profile. She was overly thrilled with it. So she hired me to write her website content, to write her bio, and she passed me along to her entrepreneurial friends, which is where my entrepreneurial bug came from. And also how I knew that was the demographic I wanted to work with because I just love their tenacity and their willingness to try new things and take risks, even if they weren't fully comfortable with them when it came to growing and building their businesses.
Excellent. So your passion is what brought you here. You were just helping people out and it resonated so much that it actually attracted your first, big time client as opposed to just a side hustle. So would you say entrepreneurship found you?
Yeah, I definitely think entrepreneurship found me. I think it was one of those things where if you would have asked me then what I wanted to do, I would have told you I wanted to be an executive in HR. I wanted to work in banking, but I definitely allowed like passion to kind of guide me and fuel me as I tried to figure out what that looked like.
Excellent. So, as a brand strategist, what are some tips that you can give entrepreneurs on how to build a strong brand?
So a couple tips that I would give is first, getting clarity on what you actually want that brand to be. I think so many times we just jump out there and we say, oh, I want to do graphic design, for example, and we just throw that out there. But we don't actually get clarity on what kind of graphic designer do we want to be. Are we the designer that makes party flyers, conference flyers? Are we the one that makes the press kits? Like, are we the designer that really wants to talk about the in-depth branding and build your mood board? And I think getting clarity on what you actually want that brand to be up front helps to eliminate a lot of the stuff that you deal with later on. So gain clarity on questions like, who am I, first of all, right? Like, what do I stand for? What do I want to do? What kind of clients do I want to work with? What kind of impact do I want to have? How do I want to make people feel when they engage with me? Taking time to not skip over those questions. I know that all kind of sounds fluffy in nature, but those are the things that you end up revisiting later on because the more experience you get, the more you start to learn more about yourself. But I don't think it's wise to just kind of jump out there without getting that clarity. And then the next piece too is going deep into what kind of customer you want, right? Are you the graphic designer that works with service-based business owners? Are you the one that works with the product-based business owners? Do you work with nonprofits? Are you an event specialist, right? Like, kind of thinking about who's that ideal client, because all of that has direct impact on the remainder of your business strategy. It has impact on what social networks you use, the language you use, the colors you use, the events you choose to go to. All of that has a huge role in it. And then you can get into the pretty stuff. And sometimes that may mean investing in tools or coaching or whatever it is to gain a clarity. But I promise you that that's money well spent, as opposed to like the money you do have, you probably just blew it on the logo and the website, and because you didn't have clarity, 6 months later, now you have to rebrand and get a new website and get a new logo.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that's a lot of things that entrepreneurs go through, especially myself. I went through that issue early on in my entrepreneurship journey. You have to basically find your niche market. You can't just service an entire realm of potential clients and customers. You have to like really pinpoint who are you going to serve. I'm glad that you said that, because a lot of entrepreneurs really do overlook that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the source of a lot of your confusion comes from, and a lot of that overwhelms them when you say things like, oh, I posted this on Instagram and I didn't get any engagement, any sales. And my first question is, well, how do you know your customers are on Instagram? And if they are on Instagram, did you post at a time when they actually are on there? Did you use a graphic that you know your customers' eyes will divert to? Are you using the right language where they understand what you're talking about and not just sounding like an expert? One activity that I do with my clients in a program I have called Bombshell Brand Society is I have them write a background report on their customer. Say, find someone's photo on the internet and write, give them a name and kind of give them a backstory. Like, tell me what they do for a living. What's their daily routine like? What shows are they watching? Where do they shop? Because we really need to get firm understanding on what influences your customers' purchasing decisions. What becomes that catalyst for change when that person decides they don't want status quo anymore and they're ready to buy whatever you have? And this is really pivotal for service-based business owners, because we're essentially helping people make some kind of change. If you're a financial coach, you're helping them make a change with their money, right? Their spending habits. If you're a business coach, you're helping them grow their business. Like, they have to now have something that encourages them to be tired of the status quo and change. What's that catalyst? And does your customer already understand the value of what you have to offer, or do you need to now guide them on that journey? And that journey is known as a sales funnel. But it's really hard to approach all of these things if you don't know who the customer is.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on the intangibles that entrepreneurs have to have, such as integrity and things like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I always say, some of the foundational points of having a brand is having things that actually have nothing to do with your business. Like you mentioned, integrity, credibility, being reliable, being forthcoming, having strong communication, showing up when you're supposed to, that's what that looks like, showing up when you're supposed to, being on time, being early. If you can't do something, communicating that in a timely manner. And those are the things that carry you forward and encourage people to actually take a risk on you, take a chance on you. People refer me for speaking engagements all the time that I sometimes have to turn down because they're not within my wheelhouse. It's like, for example, someone asked me to come talk about like self-esteem, and I'm like, yeah, I have to talk about it, but that's not really within my wheelhouse. And why was I referred for that, though? Because the person that referred me was comfortable knowing that if I do this, I'm going to show up, I'm going to deliver, I'm going to be on time, I'm going to do everything I can to best represent them. Nobody's going to refer you if you're always late.
Yeah.
No one's going to refer you if you aren't forthcoming. No one's going to refer you if you've had a bad experience. And even in the internet streets, right, we feel like, oh, the internet space is just so big, everybody's on it, like no one's going to know or find out, but they will. I had a situation where someone reached out to me to do a collaboration that I kind of knew from Instagram, but I also knew that she worked with an actual friend of mine. And I reached out to this girl via email and said, hey, what was your experience like working with so-and-so? Did you find it valuable? And she gave me the real. And she said, well, she wasn't very forthcoming. She didn't respond to emails timely. I don't think she did a good enough job promoting the people that was involved with it, this, that, and the third. And that encouraged me to turn down an opportunity.
Wow.
So things can get around.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Things spread very fast. Warren Buffett said, it takes 20 years to build a reputation, 5 minutes to ruin it. And, we realize that we'll do things a lot differently. That's absolutely true. What are some ways? So after we built the brand, we got the brand strong. We have integrity in it and things like that. We just kind of touched on it slightly, but how do we increase that brand awareness now? How do we resonate more and more? Not even just outside of our industry, but how do we get people to know I'm here, this is what I do, and I'm great at it? How do we build our audience?
Yeah, it's all about showing up and showing up consistently. So once you gain clarity on who your target customer is, you know where they hang out online. So that may mean creating a Facebook group. That may mean being consistent on Instagram Live. That may mean hanging out on LinkedIn. But wherever your customer is, you want to show up. And a lot of new entrepreneurs struggle with this piece because, obviously we base our social media strengths on likes and comments. And when you first start off, you may not get a ton of likes and comments, but you can't let that be the dictator of if you continue, or if you move forward. Like, it takes a while to build a following. It takes a long time, but I also want people to recognize that if you don't have 1 million followers, that doesn't mean you can't make any money, right? Like, I have maybe 1,400 subscribers on YouTube, which is not a lot, but I make money from my YouTube videos every single day because I'm selling my products there, and I know exactly what product to sell on YouTube that will convert, that I actually don't promote on any other social network. So those sales are coming from YouTube. And so it's a matter of the quality of the follower and the quality of the content that's going to showcase your success. So that means showing up and showing up consistently, building a content calendar for yourself so that you can really see your week or your month at, an eye's view and say, today I'm going to talk about how to build your social media following. Tomorrow I'm going to talk about how to build your email list, etc. But really thinking about how can I create valuable content and show up consistently for my audience. And it's not always just promo. It's value, promo, value, promo, right? And then also not sleeping on the in-person stuff. So going to events, conferences, investing in yourself and investing in your growth. And 9 times out of 10, if you pick the right events, you're either going to be in a room with potential clients or potential people you can collaborate with. And you want to be prepared for both. So I'm always armed with a business card, or I carry these 3x5 postcards for both of my businesses. Sometimes I'll even have some of my cosmetics in my purse to sell. Like, I'm prepared because you just never know. And so just being ready for those opportunities.
So you said, so you hinted on networking a little bit. So once the entrepreneur figures all that out, you truly believe that'll make networking a lot more easier,
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. And you also just, you commented about you have a couple of your cosmetics in your purse to sell. Tell us about your cosmetics line. When did you start that, and what was the inspiration behind starting that?
Yeah, my cosmetics line, Life of a Bombshell, launched in April 2017. I worked on it for about a year, and it was inspired by just the desire to have a product-based business. So I'm a service provider. I consult, I coach, I teach. I do have products per se, but they're all info products. They're classes and things like that. So I wanted some kind of product-based business, but I wanted it to be something I was passionate about and that I could sell. And for me, that was makeup. Like, I love makeup. I spend so much money on it. I'm watching makeup tutorials all the time. Like, that is a full passion area for me. So I decided to do some research on what starting that looked like. And it was definitely a feat. But it definitely came to life, and I'm very much proud of it. And I'm excited to see where it goes. And it actually, launching that line has created another business opportunity for my KSM Group business, because now I have info products on how to get into beauty. I have products that teach you how to make a business plan for your beauty business, how to start a beauty business. I have, a book in the works that's coming out soon on like just from A to Z, how to start your cosmetics line. That's also applicable to people who are starting fashion lines and hair lines. So that's created an opportunity. And one of the products I'm selling, I sell on YouTube because I've made about 10 different videos about these different topics, and that's where people who want to start beauty businesses tend to hang out. They tend to go to YouTube to find what they need, and I know why. Because if you Google this, you don't find a lot of reputable websites that tell you how to do this. But if you Googled how to start a blog, you could find tons of reputable sites. So there is a need there. So they go to YouTube to get people's firsthand experiences. So that's why I use YouTube for that, and it's worked out for me. So that's where the beauty business came from. And within 5 months of being in existence, the brand was featured in Essence out of nowhere. I didn't pitch them. I didn't reach out. Like, they found me. And the girl that wrote the article is someone that I don't know her in real life, but I know she's been following me for a long time. And she was comfortable putting my new brand on this list with all these other established brands because she's seen me show up consistently for years in everything that I did. So she knew that I could handle that exposure. That's another thing too. A lot of us want exposure to be shouted out, but are you actually prepared for what that looks like if you are successful and you are overwhelmed with clients and orders and all of that stuff, which is a whole other conversation. But it just shows the importance of consistently showing up, because again, this person took a chance on me and we had never had a conversation before.
So what would you say was the biggest obstacle you had when you started your cosmetics line?
I think the first obstacle was just figuring out how to get started. Because like I said, there wasn't a lot of material out there that was quality, that was on reputable sites. And I'm a research person. Like, I love Googling stuff, listening to podcasts. I will watch all the trainings because I'm thirsty for knowledge. And when you're an entrepreneur, you have to be scrappy and you have to learn how to look for answers and stop just being like, oh, somebody just come tell me everything, especially if you're not willing to pay somebody to tell you everything, right? So I've developed this skill of just like finding stuff out. And I was looking, and I ended up having to use YouTube as well. But like, I had to piece together 20 different videos to kind of get a cohesive plan. So, that was the hardest part, was just identifying like my steps for getting started, what all of that I need, identifying the right suppliers. And then the next piece too is like products, like really, because products take time. Product development takes a long time if you actually care about the quality of it. So it wasn't necessarily that it was hard, but that impacts your timeline. So putting up a blog can take you a week. Putting up a product-based business can take you a year. And like, do you have that patience to kind of see it out and stick it through?
Absolutely. So wow. So you have your branded business, you have the cosmetic line, and you have the summit. Let's talk about the summit, the Hustle Her Way Summit. How did that come about?
The Hustle Her Way Summit came about out of nowhere, literally. This will be the third year of the summit. It's June 8th through 10th here in Pittsburgh. And when I hosted the first one in 2016, it was actually out of fear. So I wanted to do an in-person event, but I was really afraid that no one would come, no one would show up. And so I told myself, well, this is something that you're afraid of, but if it works, it could be of extreme benefit to people. So I'm going to go bigger than work. So let's do a summit. But I intentionally used the word summit because it was meant to be smaller than a conference. So I was aiming for 50 people, half day, workshops, whatever, put out a call for speakers, what have you. And I planned it within 4 to 5 months, and it kind of blew up and took off because it was like one of the first in its kind in the region where it's, majority Black women speakers, entrepreneurs, both in Pittsburgh, out of Pittsburgh. People started to reach out about sponsoring. An incubator reached out about me hosting it at their venue instead of the venue I had, which then opened up more seating and more tickets, and it just blew up beyond my imagination. And people had, so many compliments, like, hey, this is better than conferences I've paid thousands of dollars to go to. This was a life-changing event. And it was interesting, too, because I kind of expected it to be mostly young people, millennial, Black people. And we had young, old, white, Black, Hispanic, like a little bit of everybody. And I noticed that, the goal that I actually had was accomplished, which was bring career women and entrepreneurial women together, because I felt like events is always one or the other. And for most people, you're in both demographics, you're in both groups. Not everybody wants to be a full-time entrepreneur, and not everybody wants to be a side hustler forever. So I think there's something to learn from both groups. And so I curated intentional workshops that would be applicable to both groups. So we did like a panel on entrepreneurship, but the rest of the classes were on things like global travel and finance and all of that stuff, personal branding that's applicable to both groups, things like that. So people were asking about a year 2, and I decided to do a year 2, and it was never in a plan, but I did it. And so that was bigger and better than ever. And now we're on year 3, which is, again, bigger than better than ever. But fortunately, I started way earlier with planning. So this year it's a 3-day extravaganza. It's a kickoff networking event on a Friday night. So people that are traveling from out of town or coming by themselves can make new friends in a casual environment over cocktails. And that really impacts the atmosphere on Saturday, because it's no longer, stuffy and you're kind of nervous because you don't know anybody. Like, you made friends the night before. And then we're doing a brunch on Sunday that's meant to be an action brunch, where you get a binder or a workbook with actionable worksheets that you can now use to craft a plan based on what you've learned on Saturday, so that combats that feeling of leaving the conference really inspired with a bunch of notes but not knowing where to start.
Your motto is feel the fear and do it anyway. And
yes,
it's great that you followed your own advice, because you were afraid that if you put on this event, no one was going to show up, but you still put it on. And the people who, I truly believe, the people who show up are the people who are supposed to be there. And you put this event on, and now 3 years later, it's still growing. It's still blessing and helping out so many women, that can progress in their careers and in their businesses. What is some tips that you can give, not just women but people in general, when it comes to networking? Because networking is such a scary word for so many people. So many introverts, things like that. What are some tips you can give people that can help them with their networking a lot better?
Yeah, I think the first major tip is be intentional about the event you're going to. And the benefit of actually being entrepreneurial is, like I said before, you're going to be in a room with either prospective clients or prospective partners. So unlike, networking when you were in college, you didn't really know what you were asking for or what you were doing. Like, now you're going to get a client or to collab. Like, right. That's what, or funding, right? Like, you're looking for one of those 3 things. So it helps to actually guide the conversations you're about to have, because, if I meet someone that's a prospective client, right? Like, if I go to I'll do this. I'll go to workshops for beginner entrepreneurs all the time, not because I'm trying to learn anything, but because I want to see who's in the space. And I have really targeted discussions before and after, like, I see you're here. Like, what kind of business are you looking to start? Or have you already gotten out there and had troubles? And I listen to them, and I ask questions, and I listen to them. And then at the end, like, I say, well, hey, like, I do X, Y, and Z, and, here's my card, I do consultations if you're interested, blah, blah, blah. But I'm very intentional with where I'm going in the discussions that I have. And so for people that are shy, I actually have a couple blogs on this, on how to conquer networking if you're a shy person or an introvert. But I always say have back pocket questions that you can ask anyone, anytime, that you can use as an icebreaker, or if there's a lull in the conversation, kind of have those things, questions like, what brought you here? How are you affiliated with the host? Are you new to the city? In Pittsburgh, there's a lot of transplants here, so that's a really good one. Ask, like, are you new? Where are you from? Or where'd you grow up here? Just really showing that genuine interest. And then I always say, too, practice your exit. So in case you're engaging with someone that talks way too much, how do you wrap them up? And kind of practicing those things are great. One tip for boosting confidence at events is really look your best. Wear your favorite shirt, your favorite tie, your favorite pair of heels, your favorite lipstick, whatever. looking good literally makes you feel good. Like, it has a psychological impact on how you carry yourself. So if you're worried about something not fitting right, or your pants aren't hemmed the right way, like, that's going to show in your body language and how you communicate. So that's really important. Be prepared with your cards. You know, like I said, I carry sometimes lipsticks in my purse, and I'll bring my Square reader to have people who pay me right then and there.
Right.
I also have an app on my phone to like book consultations too. Like, I'm prepared for all of that stuff in person, on site. So those are the things that I recommend for people who are looking to get into networking but don't really know where to start.
Okay, great. So the KSM Group, Life of a Bombshell, Hustle Her Way Summit, all of your brands and businesses are growing and they are successful. Where do you see your brands going in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, it's such a good question, and my long-term plans continue to change each year as I'm able to really work towards certain things. But I mean, ultimately, I want to have an impact. Ultimately, I want to help as many women as I can. You know, just unpack their brilliance and share it with the world. And so that, for me, on a tangible level, looks like obviously increasing my client roster, but kind of doing so in a different manner, because I really think there's power in bringing people together intentionally. So, you know, long term, I want to be able to incorporate my summit and kind of take it, you know, across the country, international, maybe making it smaller in nature to, you know, create good environments to kind of teach people in those kind of settings. It also means publishing more books and really continuing to create more high value content for my audience.
What motivates you to do all of that? You know, what's the motivation behind this mission?
It's so passion driven. I can't really explain like why my passion is around helping people, but it's always been that, and that's why my career started in HR. When I was in college, I thought I was going to be like a financial analyst or whatever, but number crunching never really gave me life. But I loved giving advice to people when it came to their career stuff. Like, that's why I did it for free for so many years when it came to the resume and LinkedIn and how to network, how to do this. And like, you know, I wasn't getting anything from it, you know, besides the joy of when people would come back and say, I got the job or got the internship, and how that made me feel is so indescribable. And like, now it's the same thing when my clients get their first sale, when they have their first speaking engagement, when their site finally launches, like that joy that they have when previously something was holding them back, and now I help them overcome that. You know, when I do speaking engagements, when I see people see the look in their eyes, when they start to understand and see possibility, like, that drives me, and that intangible reward is like what keeps me going.
That's beautiful. So how can we get in contact with you and all of your businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find my coaching services, my books, my classes, and my blog at thisishermovement.com. My social media handles, I'm at Kyshira on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. And then I have my cosmetics line is lifeofabombshell.com, and it's Life of a Bombshell on Instagram and on Facebook.
Okay. And are there any last words you'd like to give all of the aspiring entrepreneurs out there listening?
So my last words is literally my motto, which is feel the fear, do it anyway. Whatever it is you've been thinking about doing, or you've been toying with the idea of, or, you know, the notes you have in your phone, whatever that looks like, I really want you to make today the day that you decide to move forward. Like, whatever is holding you back, like, push past it, and I promise you that the reward of that is going to be exponential.
Feel the fear and do it anyway. You will enjoy the reward.
Absolutely.
To all of the aspiring entrepreneurs out there, let's continue to work, let's continue to imagine reality, and let's make it happen. You have a great day. I'll talk to you next week.